This terrible story happened to us 2 years ago. As soon as the season opened, in the fall, we went to the taiga to hunt elk. There were 3 of us in total, me, Garrick, and Oleg. We got 2 licenses for elk, all with the rank of plain tree. We went to a specific place. Not far from the city where Garrick was born, there is a village, Zubrovka. In times of mud, you can only get there with a good SUV, and even then, not always. There weren't many people living. There were 20 houses in total, maybe a little more. But the most important thing, of course, is Sergeich. Sergeich, or grandfather Nikifor, was the name of Nikifor Sergeyevich, a former huntsman and now a pensioner. However, he responded to any name. He was probably over 70 years old, but I had never seen such a vigorous old man. Sergeich never complained about his health. He spent morning until night in the forest, mostly collecting berries and cedar cones and hunting when absolutely necessary. So he said that it's better to eat empty potatoes one more time than to beat an animal in vain. We met him when we were still young and foolish, and came in a big group to hunt a bear. Grandfather Nikifor was recommended to us as the best guide, and he looked at us, laughed, and said that he would not lead. The bear is king in the forest. You fools gathered with a pig snout immediately into a kalash line, and there are no harmful bears here. Sergeich called harmful animals that either multiplied too much or began to threaten the people living in the village. He hunted these without any licenses, but he also kept the bad hunters shooting left and right away from his forest. That year, the 3 of us stayed for almost a month with grandfather Nikifor. He taught us how to conduct ourselves in the forest. It turned out that this science is so as not to get into trouble and not to disturb the inhabitants. And about hunting, he coached us, but it was as if he held us on a leash and didn't let us go far. How many years passed before we grew up to moose, and we came to see him that autumn. Only Sergeich didn't meet us. A lame Ogonyok ran out to meet the old man, a dog with bright red fur and an incorrectly fused paw, but the owner himself was not there. We had to go into the house ourselves. Grandfather Nikifor is lying on the bed next to his neighbor, a portly woman, about 40. It turned out that our huntsman had a fever for the 2nd day already. Dried up, sweaty, eyes exhausted. He recognized us, wanted to get up, but couldn't, and collapsed back into bed. We settled down, naturally got some goodies, sat down, but without drinking. Grandfather didn't like it. We decided that it was not in vain that we had come. We would go hunting, albeit without Sergeich. The huntsman tried to persuade us for a long time, saying that we couldn't go without him. Yes, we are stubborn guys too, not boys anymore, especially with every weapon. What could happen? Then the old man warned us, and seriously, if you go far, after the black stone, stay closer to the river. It is afraid of water. Well, we nodded, although it's clear that Sergeich is delirious. What kind of Ono is it if we're going after an elk? Why is he afraid of water? In short, we went out the next day in the morning. The old man insisted that Ogonyok come with us. He is a rootless dog, the lousiest color, and even lame. But he is terribly smart, for which his grandfather Nikifor always praised him. We went out into the forest. After so many years, of course, he did not become family to us, but we found our bearings normally. They wandered for a long time. They even began to lose hope of hunting when they came upon the trail of an elk. Not very fresh, but there was nothing else. Oleg was our pathfinder. Not God knows what. He couldn't hold a candle to grandfather Nikifor, but he's certainly better than us. He led us forward, Ogonyok limping next to him. Such walks were difficult for him. The dog was already old. We passed a steep gray rock, which the locals call the Black Stone. From a distance it really looks black. Went a little deeper into the thicket when Ogonyok stopped and growled. We immediately raised our guns, stood there, looking around. There is no one around. Why did the dog imagine this? He bared his teeth and growled more and more threateningly, and he huddled at our feet. This is where we started to get scared. We remembered the old man's warning about the Black Stone, that we should stay closer to the water. It's too late. And then a noise was heard in the forest, not the rustling of leaves or the cracking of branches, like a long, long howl that penetrates to the bones. It's not even the animal screaming, but some kind of machine emitting ultrasound. I want to drop everything and hide from him, but there is nowhere to run. There is a forest all around. The sound is getting louder. Apparently, it is getting closer. Out of his mind, Garrick fired a couple of times to the side, but it didn't change anything. Here, Ogonyok finally became afraid. He didn't wait to see how it would end and rushed to the side. As soon as we cursed this dog to ourselves, we abandoned it in such a situation. But we ourselves were so on edge that, out of inertia, we rushed after the dog. They ran as if getting into the Olympic team depended on it. And all this in full equipment. At the beginning of our run, the noise became quieter. but then it began to catch up with us. There was a pounding in the temples. Even the head began to spin, but no one was going to stop. Behind us, we could already hear the quite audible crunch of branches, but turning around was even more terrifying. Suddenly the forest parted, and we rolled down a gentle ledge towards the river. Ogonyok was already there waiting for us, wagging his tail. Everyone here already felt safe. We laughed at ourselves, smoked, and even told a few horror stories about the forest. We decided to return. Just as we approached the forest, there's that hum again. The closer to the trees, the louder it gets. It's as if the very it that Sergej warned about is waiting for us behind the branches. We had to go back to the river. So we headed back along the shore. We had to make a huge detour, but there were no options. As soon as you move away from the river a little, this sound immediately hurts your ears. And it seems to move with us, leading us. Waiting for someone to move a little further, we reached the village only in the evening of the next day. The old man is already feeling better. Although he was very weak, he was already sitting on the bed, still trying to take charge of things himself. Of course, we told him everything, expecting that Sergej would have an explanation for our terrible story. And he just shrugged his shoulders. The wind, probably. No matter how much we approached, no matter how much we asked, he didn't say anything. The old man closed and just smiled. They began to put pressure on the fact that he himself taught him to hold on to the water and not to go behind a black stone, but he nodded, saying that he had a fever and said nonsense. And Ogonyok sits next to him with a calm look, as if he fully supports the owner in everything. It was as if nothing had happened. And so they left without a slurp. 4 months later, grandfather Nikifor died. His health had failed, apparently due to that fever, and he was still too old. He took with him the secret to the grave about the mysterious it, walking through the taiga and afraid of water. He did not provide an explanation for our terrible story. We didn't go to Zubrovka anymore, Garrick. When he was visiting his parents, looked into the village, but, he says, everything isn't the same without the old man. And the forest became alien.